Why are some data fields grey and cannot be edited? There are a number of reasons, and you need to consider the following points when you can't edit data. First of all, you may not have access, so you need to discuss access with your administrator. You'll find that some data, like the project status, needs the project to be opened before the data may be edited. And finally, you find that some data is calculated, such as the actual duration, so you can't edit it.
Summarizing projects. When projects are not summarized, then the information from unopened projects seen in the Projects window, Activities window, and Tracking window will either be blank if the project has never been summarized, or out of date if the project has been updated since it was last summarized. Projects or a database may be summarized either by selecting Tools Summarize, where you may summarize either open projects or all projects, right-click on one or more unopened projects and select Summarize, or as a large database takes a significant amount of time to summarize, they may be summarized automatically by using job services, and this is usually run every night. So what happens when you summarize projects is the data from the activities is copied into what's called the summary tables that are then read by the projects window, the tracking window, and when you're viewing histograms and tables from resources assigned to unopened projects. So let's have a look at how this works. So I don't have the bid for facility extension open at the moment. You can see that it hasn't been summarized. There's no at completion hours, cost, no actual remaining duration, no activities, but you'll see here it's got a finish date and the data date is showing, there's a bar showing. Sometimes in some versions of the software, in some instances, you won't see the finish date or the bar. Now when I open the project, what you'll find is that these fields will be populated. So if we go to the activities view, obviously there are activities, there's $58,000 of cost and 528 hours of units and a duration and that sort of thing. When I go back to the projects window, you can see these have all been populated with the hours, the actual duration, remaining duration. The total number of activities is interesting. This seems to only get populated when you summarize anyway, and different versions of software tend to give you different results. So at the moment, if I go to this project here now and I go File, Close All, you'll see that these all get zeroed out again. So now these are being zeroed out because the project's not open. So I can summarize by right-click and saying Summarize Project, or I can use the tools Summarize and I can either summarize open projects or all projects. Obviously the project has to be open before we can summarize open projects. So if I right-click and select Summarize Project, it's now going to summarize this project. And you'll see that these fields are now populated and you can see now the date that it's last summarized. So that's the function of summarization, and it populates the summary table, and these are used here, they're used in the tracking table, and also when you're in the activities window and you're reading resources from unopened projects, it uses this summary data. Summarizing projects, the following functions control the summarization and availability of data. First of all, the project window setting tab summarize data determines how many levels of the WBS is summarized. A level 0 will summarize all levels. And secondly, the admin preferences options specify the interval to summarize and store resource spreads, decides at what time interval that summarized data is saved. And don't forget, this applies to all projects within a database. Also, a project summarized data may be deleted by selecting the project, right-clicking and selecting Delete Project Summaries. So Haitang Corporate Park has not been summarized, so you can see that it doesn't have a last summarized date. And if we go to the tracking window, we can see that there is no histogram here and there's no bar here either. If I go back to the projects window and I open the project and go back to the projects window, you can see that it's populated this data here. It hasn't got the total number of activities, but it's populated the cost and the labor. If I go to the tracking window, you can see I've got all the bars, but I don't have a histogram. If I go File, Close All, and I select Yes, I can go back to the projects window and I can decide at what level. So I'm going to summarize to WBS level 2, for example, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to summarize the project. Now it's going through the summarization process. You can see it's put in the cost and the hours. It's put when it's been summarized, and now it's finished and I select OK. You'll see now that it's put in the number of activities as well. If I go to the tracking view, what's happened now is you can see that I'm only seeing WBS level 2 and I'm seeing the histograms here for the resources. So again, and you can see I've got the summary data here in the costs as well at WBS level 2. If I go back to the projects window and I decide to summarize to level 3 and I right click and I summarize the project, select OK. If I go back to the tracking window, now I'm back at the tracking window, you can see it summarized down to WBS level 3, and again I can see the histograms and I can see the detail against the WBS nodes at now level 3. If I go back to the projects window here now, you can see that I've summarized at level 3, and as I said, if I go to level 0, then what it'll do is it'll summarize to all levels. If I want to remove the summarization, I can right click and I can delete the project summaries, and I select yes, and now the project summaries have been deleted. And if I go back to the tracking window here, you can see that the bars have gone and the histogram has gone, but I've got the full WBS. Next thing I want to look at is if I go to admin preferences and we go down to options, it's summarizing the projects by week. And if I select close and I go to this projects window, I'm going to summarize to level 0 and I right click and summarize. What will happen is when we show the histogram in the tracking window will be by week, and I can't get it by day, but obviously I can get it by month if I want to. So that's finished summarizing, and if I go to the tracking window now and I open up the timescale plus, you can see that I can see the histograms by week, and if I go plus again, I can't get it by day because summarization is currently being done by week, and summary data is not saved by day, it only goes by week. So if I go to admin preferences, I can now, if I want to, I'm going to put this both at month. So I'm going to summarize now at month and close. Now I can go to the projects window, I can right click and delete the summaries. Now what I'm going to do is summarize at level 1 to show you how this summarization works here. So I'm going to summarize at level 1 and I'm going to select right click and summarize the project. Now if I go back to the tracking window, you'll see now when I try to open up the histogram, so here's the Hightown Corporate Park, let's move this across, you will see that it has summarized this up to level 1 and there is no detail below level 1. So at level 1 here, you'll see that we have the summaries at level 1, and if I look at the histogram, you'll see the histogram now, the histogram is by month, and if I will open it up, it's not by week anymore, it's by month. So depending on what your options are that you choose, so admin preferences decides the level that they are in duration, whether summarized by week or by month. And if I go back to the projects window, this option here decides how many levels of WBS, with one being at the project level. So summarized project data can be read from the activities window. So if I go back to the projects window, I copy this project twice. I've got one that's leveling priority of 5 and one of 11 leveling priority of 9. And if I go back to the activities window, I can display all projects or open projects only. So if I now show all projects and I go to edit user preferences, I can here decide I want to see all projects except what if, or all projects with a leveling priority greater than say 10. And if I select greater than 10, it's going to have both of the other two projects, but because the projects are summarized by month, we get all the resources from the other two projects on a single month. And if I go to edit user preferences and I set this to 6, I'm only going to see the project, only one of the two projects, and you'll see here that this is at about 280, and if I select close, this has dropped right down now to about 100, just under 160, so I'm only having a look at that one other project. So if I select admin preferences and set this to week, you wouldn't actually change this backwards and forwards because this is a setting for the whole database and every other project in the database. So you would decide as an organization whether you want to set it as week or month, and I select close though. And now I'm going to go back to this project and I'm going to summarize this project, which is at leveling priority 5. And when I go back to the activities window, you'll find the histogram will be smoothed over by week. So just let the data come up here, click on the activities window, and you see that peak has been taken out. But obviously if I increase the time scale now to days, you'll find that I have the other project here. So that's how you can view other project. I can display here just this current project, or I can display open projects, and then I need to go to edit user preferences to control what data I see from other projects.
Job services. Job services is a tool that allows you to perform certain functions on the database on a regular basis and program them to happen. First of all, you select Tools Job Services to open up the Job Services form, or you can select Administer Global Schedule Services in the web for optional client users. So if you're using the professional client, you can set up job services in the client, but if you're using the optional client, you need to actually open up the web tool first. So the following services may be run. You can apply actuals, which is used to bring in the actuals from the timesheeting. You're able to batch reports, which means you can print reports or produce reports automatically. You can export projects, schedule, or summarize projects. So let's have a look at job services. So to create a job service, you select Tools, Job Services, and you have the job details and the job options tab. You'll only see this in the professional. In the optional, you need to set up job services in the web. Also, if you're running on a standalone database and you shut your machine down at night, then this will not run if the database is not running. So if I click on Add, I can add the job services, and I might say Summarize. I can enable or disable the service. And then down here, I can say whether I want it run every day or every week, and I can decide immediately after a previous job if I had another job scheduled. On the job options, this is where I can decide at what project nodes or EPS nodes I want it run on, and here it allows me to assign individual nodes to run the project on. And depending on the job service, you'll end up with different options. And then once I select close, then this job service will run whenever it's scheduled to run. So job services can be used, if I add another one, to apply actuals, batch reports, export data, schedule, or summarize.
Tracking window. The tracking window is used to track multiple projects down to WBS level and read summarized data when the project is closed. And so the tracking window will show histograms either by week or by month when the project is closed, but you can drill right down to a lot of detail when it's open, and also you can select the WBS level that a project is summarized at. There are 4 tracking layout types that are used for resource, cost and schedule analysis of multiple projects. There's the project table, project bar chart, project Gantt chart profile, or resource analysis, and we'll have a look at all those in a minute. Also, there are forecast bars that may be dragged to a new location to see the effect of resourced histograms, and this only works when the project is open. If the project is not open, then you won't see the revised histograms. The Edit User Preferences, Resource Analysis, Time Distributed Data option is set to forecast dates to allow the remaining early cost and units to be recalculated on the forecast dates. And the Reset Forecast Dates button resets the forecast dates back to the start and finish dates. So we'll have a look at the tracking window next.
To view the tracking window, I can select Enterprise Tracking, or I can click on the tracking button here. So we have a left hand and a right hand pane, And in the left-hand pane, if I select Ausbuild Projects, that's all I'll see in the right hand. So if I select E&C, I'm only going to see E&C projects in the right-hand pane. If I control-click and select E&C and Energy, then that will select what I see in the right-hand pane. So all I'm going to see is E&C and Energy. All these projects, I can drill down to WBS level. So again, depending on what I select on the left, will determine what I see on the right. But this will go only down to WBS level. You can see I can sort by WBS code or name. And again, this sorts in the same way that any other view will sort. So let's look at the right hand side. The timescale can be adjusted by using these buttons here, or you can right click timescale and edit timescale the normal way. And you can see when you right click you've got columns and filters here as well. So I can therefore create a filter and decide what data I want to show. Down the bottom here we have bottom layout options. We can show the timescale if we want to, or not show the timescale. And we have an option of showing a spreadsheet or a profile. I mean, if you show the spreadsheet, then you end up with columns options, and you can decide whether you want to show the cost, OBS, or customize it. So all of these windows have a large amount of formatting that's available to it. You have here, you can create a new layout, and when you create a new layout, you can give it a name, and you have an option of having a project table, a bar chart, a Gantt chart, or resource analysis, and you can make these layouts available to different people. So there's a lot of functionality available here. You need to decide what you want to display and then format it. You'll find that there are a number of layouts available that have already been pre-structured, and you can apply each of these and have a look at how they're formatted and decide whether you want to use any of the existing ones or whether you want to create your own. Layouts like this labor cost layout are very useful when you select an EPS node and you can compare the relative values of multiple projects. So let's look at creating some layouts. So we go up to here, display layout. I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to create a project table to begin with, and I'm going to make it valid for myself and OK. So project table allows me to decide what data I want to see in columns. I can add or remove any of this data and click on apply, and this will now show me all the data associated with any of the projects that I've highlighted on the left hand side. So if I just want the Ausbuild project or just city centre office building, and I can open this up if I want to show the remaining data. So the next layout I'm going to create is a project bar chart, and I'm going to select OK. And this allows me to decide what parameters I want to show on the horizontal bar. So they got the baseline total cost and the actual and remaining, which is fairly suitable for me. And you can see the forecast is slightly higher than the baseline. I can show a stacked one if I want to. I don't think that's particularly useful. And if I want to, I can unstack these. Obviously the default, where you're actually comparing the final forecast cost with the baseline, is the most useful. You can again decide whether you want to use the units or the cost in this format here. When you select multiple projects, it becomes very useful so you can see the progress or the forecast of which projects are going well and which are not. I'm going to create a project Gantt profile. So I select new, and here I'm going to call it project Gantt profile, and I'm going to select down here project Gantt profile as the option, and I can format the bars if I want to. And at this point in time now, I can see the WBS nodes, and here the brown bars are the forecast bars and the blue bars are the current schedule. You can actually grab the brown bars and move the forecast bars forward. Therefore, this allows you to see a revised program without changing the schedule, and you can reset the forecast dates if you want. So if I want to see the effect of moving this project forward, say 6 months, you'll see down here I have a histogram, but it's not reflecting the changes, and I need to go to edit user preferences, and I need to click on the resource analysis and select forecast dates here. And when I select close, you'll see now that the forecast dates or the forecast values have been moved forward with the forecast dates. And again, if I want to, I can go and show costs, and you'll see that the costs now are forecast in the future. Or I can go to the spreadsheet fields, and if I want to see for example, the at completion labour units. This will therefore forecast the at completion labour units. So remember to go to Edit User Preferences if you want to see the forecast dates. If you want to see remaining early and close, then the forecast bars will be out in the future, but you'll see that you're now showing the early dates and not the forecast dates. Now create a resource analysis view, and here I need to select resource analysis in the new layout form and select OK. Again, if I like, I can format the bars here and select OK. What I have here now is the option of selecting one or more resources to see in the bottom pane here, and you can see that I have the forecast dates which I can reset or drag out as I like. I can select individual resources, or I can control click and select multiple resources. Down in the bottom pane here, I can decide whether I want to see a table, and again I can select all the resources by control clicking, or I can show a histogram, and again I can show the histogram or the table in the top, and I can show the histogram or table in the bottom. I obviously have also an additional option of the Gantt chart in the top here. So again, you've got the normal menu when you go to profile settings of what you wish to display, and again with the table, if you right click and you go to spreadsheet fields, you have the normal options of cumulative and time interval in both costs and resources. So this allows you to again control click and view multiple projects and that sort of thing. So that's a brief introduction into the tracking window. You really need multiple projects with common resources assigned over multiple projects to make use of this window.